Are you a coach looking for the best apps out there for your business? Well, I mean, if you are a coach that does fitness or wellness, nutrition, anything to do with training and conditioning clients, then you know that basically having the right tools for work is a necessity. And there are so many apps out there. So I'm making this video. I'm going to talk today about how to choose the best apps because there's so many out there and there are so many sources of information, and it's not clear which information you can trust, or you know it's not clear. Sure, you can have some reviews out there, but how do you know if the reviews are good or not, or how do you know which features are best? How do you evaluate customer support? We're going to cover all these questions today. It's going to be a deep dive, and it's going to be an honest answer, because basically my name is Diego and I run an app called NutriAdmin. So this is an app mainly for nutritionists, but also we do get a lot of coaches because there's some overlap between the work. And I'm not gonna be promoting my own app. I'm just gonna give you what are my thoughts as an industry insider on how you can choose the best app, which may be other. There are hundreds of apps, so I think there are different apps that target different niches and that have different pros and cons depending on what you're looking for. So that's what I'm going to talk today. And essentially, my goal is to just provide extra education so that if you're new to coaching or you haven't really checked what apps are out there and you're not familiar, you're going to be able to hopefully learn from this video and learn from other sources online. Don't just take my advice. I'm just one person. And hopefully you can make your own informed decision, because essentially some of these apps you're going to use for 10 years maybe, and if some of the apps can allow you to get just one extra client a year or something like that, if it can just give you that little edge, like make some of your work 1% faster, just spending a couple of hours picking the right one is going to pay off for the long term, I think. So it's the same for any other industry. Like if you are a software developer or you work in as a nutritionist, choosing the right tools if it's something that you're going to use daily, it's really, really important to get the best apps that you can. So briefly, what I'm going to cover here today is who this guide is for, and why I'm not just giving you a ranking of the best apps, because I think it's just not so simple. Then why trust me on which apps are best? Like why is my advice trustworthy? Or I'm going to try to earn your trust and make some arguments to hopefully convince you that I can provide some information that can be useful. And then I'm going to just give you all the insider information I have as somebody that has been running an app that coaches use for the last 7 years. So there are things that I may know that you wouldn't know I can tell you from my perspective, from the side of the app owner, how things look like and what the kind of feedback that we get from users and what seems to work and what doesn't. So hopefully that's the information that will be the most valuable. And then after that, I'm going to move on to how to, like a practical process, step by step, on how to choose the best apps. And it's going to be basically you evaluating the app, not me telling you which app is best, because I don't know. It all depends on who you are and what your preferences are, what your budget is, and a host of other factors. So I'll just provide you some tips. And by the way, this video is associated with an article that you can find online. You can go to nutriadmin.com/blog/best-apps-for-coaches. So it's going to be in the description. It's a bit weird to just give URLs by talking, but it's basically going to be in nutriadmin.com/blog in case you want to check, because there's going to be a checklist associated with this talk that you can download and follow. And then we'll wrap it up. So just let's start with, who is this guide for? So that's basically coaches for many different disciplines or areas, let's say. This is going to be mainly for coaches that work in sports, fitness, health and wellness. So trying to make people be fitter or healthier or better nourished, that kind of thing. But it can just anyone that works with clients and wants to make them motivated, get better results, improve some area of their life. If you're a coach that fits that description broadly, then this is for you. Or many of the criteria it's gonna be applicable to other types of coaching or to other professions in the wellness slash training stage, so arena. So it's quite applicable if you are working in that area. And then so so if you're a coach in that stuff, I mean, if you're buying online anything, one of the first things that people do when they search online is they just Google what are the best apps for coaching, or if I want restaurant somewhere, like what are the best restaurants? If I want to watch a film, what are the best films? And I think is that the problem with those rankings is that it's not always there's not always an objective comparison really. So, for instance, if I search what are the something objective, like what is the biggest company or what is the country with the most population, so that is just a number that can be computed, and you can get a ranking on a table that lists all of this, and you can be fairly certain that it's going to be objective. But then when it comes to something a bit more subjective or a bit more nuanced, like what is the best restaurant? Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, there's no best restaurant really. It depends on your taste, on your budget, on do you want the place to be busy or to be quiet? Do you want a family restaurant or something busy? Do you want to have live music? What about your allergies? What about the cuisine? Like, I mean, all these factors. If you put several of them together, like if you are more specific with your question, like what is the best Italian restaurant within this price range that serves the best pizza that is the closest to the Neapolitan style. So the more you specify, I mean, it's still a bit subjective, but you can narrow it down and you can be like, okay, there are 10 restaurants that meet this very specific criteria in the city, and one of them seems to have raving reviews and the other ones are sort of average, so perhaps this one is the best. But you still will have to try them. Like maybe some of the other ones will be better for some dishes. I mean, but the point I'm trying to make is that at the end of the day, you have to decide and you have to be informed, and nobody can tell you what's the best app for a coach, because essentially there's no such thing as the best app for a coach. And sometimes companies will just claim to be the best, but I mean, that's just kind of marketing speak. It depends, like best for what, like you have to qualify that statement. And I mean, certainly no company will advertise themselves as being bad, because obviously that wouldn't sell. So that's why I cannot give you a ranking. And that being said, if you Google ranking for anything, if you Google what is the best product for this category, or you Google anything like that, you're going to find plenty of rankings. And that's because marketers know that human psychology, that's the first question anybody's going to ask when they are about to buy a product. And as such, people are going to click on those links. And then, for instance, if you're going to find the following, you're going to find either a website that lists a bunch of options that they just literally, what they did is they Googled a bunch of different companies. They just made a list with a copy pasted description. People click in there, and they serve some advertisement on the sides, and suddenly the website just makes money on the advertising. So they don't really have your best interest at heart. They just want to get a click. Or you may get a list, like a ranking from a company that is listing themselves in the rankings. So that way they're kind of trying to position themselves here are the best apps for coaches. Oh, look at what a coincidence. We seem to be inside of the ranking, right? So how how honest, like how so that's not really going to be very useful, right? Even though, I mean, it can be useful if sometimes it may be a bit better researched. So if the person compiling this list is somebody that you trust, like somebody that it doesn't have a vested interest, and somebody that just has, for instance, a school for coaches or nutritionists that is making a list of the apps that have worked for their students and they've reasoned it, that can be a bit more, that can be helpful, right? But so you have to be just skeptical is what I'm trying to say, because many times you're going to have those rankings, and they're going to be either useless and full of ads, or they're going to be biased. So just be critical and take into account and evaluate where does this information come from. So that's why what I'm trying to do in here is to educate you and to teach you on the different criteria that are useful to know about, and so that you can make the choice. Now, so next I'm going to try to persuade you to take time on choosing your app. If it takes you a few days, this is time well invested. And that's why I've written a long article about this, and this is a relatively long video. And that's because, if you commit prematurely to an app, you may be using it for 10 years into the future. It may become hard to switch from one app to another because you have to download all the data, and it may not be easy to import it to the new system. So given that if you're going to use an app for coaching, you're going to want to save time or get more clients, or it's going to be something that you're going to use hopefully daily or on a regular basis. So a couple of days or even a couple of weeks spent now trying, it's going to pay massive dividends if you make the right choice. And yeah, it's just, there's a series of like psychologists have studied what's called there's this in mathematics, there's this secretary problem is called, which is that if you have to choose a secretary to hire for your business, and there's maybe hundreds of candidates, and how do you pick the best one? And they go one by one, and once you interview one, and if you say no, you cannot go back and offer the job again, because presumably this person left for another job. So there's like the optimal sort of mathematical solution to this problem is that you interview 37% of the candidates, saying no to all of them. So this is just for you to gather information, to get a feel of what's available. And after that, you just pick the next one that is better than the previous ones you've seen. So, but that's sort of the heuristic behind this is that initially, if you pick the first one, like the same with the software, if you pick the first software option, you find out what are the chances that's the best. Well, pretty low, you just picked one. Whilst if you spend ages checking all of the options, that's like impractical. And so the kind of solution is somewhere in between. Is you try a few, like maybe you try 5 to 8 apps in practical terms, and then you pick the best one. I mean, it's common sense really, but sometimes you may not be aware that other apps are there, or you just if you found something adequate and it's sort of okay but not exceptional, I encourage you to check for a few others, because there may be something much better out there. And why do I bring this up, this secretary problem? Well, because it's kind of common sense, right? Try a few options and then pick the best. And this is kind of applicable to everything, like how to pick your job or picking a flat to rent or many other things. So the reason I bring this up is because mathematics studies this secretary problem, which kind of rationally we need to check all these options and then pick the best. But psychologists find that most people just don't sample enough. Most people don't check enough options before committing. Most people just they choose prematurely on everything, and that is because evaluating different options takes time, and we have this short-term bias where if I spend 2 weeks checking different softwares as a coach, I may think I am wasting time, like I need to get back to work, and I am sort of losing time on the short term. But if long term, if I'm gonna then be using the same app for a decade or two, if it's gonna be an app or a software that's gonna be maintained and updated over time, and it's gonna be saving me time, it's gonna be opening up new business avenues for me, then that's a massive advantage you're gonna have versus the competition. So if you are able to make meal plans in a few minutes and your competitors spend 3 hours, or they're not even able to provide meal plans, or if your exercise plans get your clients to achieve their goals better, those are all massive tangible benefits. And if you only spend a few minutes picking some software and then it turns out that it doesn't do the things that you need it to do well, that is a massive loss long term. Like every day that goes by, you're losing. So please take time to evaluate some options and pick the best one. And and if you find a better one and in the future and you can switch, you should probably do that as well. Obviously depends in your circumstances, but don't just settle prematurely with the first app that you because there's massive differences between different apps. Just try multiple ones. Now now who do you trust when it comes to picking an app, right? Because there are many voices and many people. When it comes to any commercial product, there's going to be different people that want to sell it to you. And I run this software called Nutriadmin, nutriadmin.com, and Obviously, yeah, I mean, I will be happy if you sign up for my app, but so why trust me, right? Like, I am representing an app. There are other apps out there, of course. Well, um, I'm gonna just try to give you some reasons on why hopefully I can earn your trust, and I can give you some rationale on why I feel I have something valuable to add to this discussion. So, um, basically, you know, what let me start by saying, what do you have to gain, right? So if you find the advice I'm giving you useful, and this leads you to pick the right app, then you're going to be, for many years to come, saving time in repetitive tasks and other work that you have to do. You're going to be hopefully growing your business and expanding your income. You're going to be having more client interactions, because the software will take care of sort of admin busy work, and you'll have more time for face-to-face or virtual interactions with clients. You're going to be organized. You're going to hopefully be able to provide extra services like meal plans or workout plans. You're going to be more efficient. There's many benefits, obviously, to having the right tools for work. So let me start by saying who I am. So as I've mentioned, I am Diego, and I am a senior software developer. So I've been writing software for a decade now. And I started Nutriaming in 2016. And we primarily sell software for nutritionists, but about 20 to 30% of our users are personal trainers and coaches. And that is because there's far more coaches and personal trainers than there are nutritionists. And there's some overlap between the work, and we offer some features that these professionals find useful sometimes. But obviously, there are many other apps out there that also attract coaches. So by no means we are the only option. So now, the elephant in the room, why should you listen to me? You may think I am biased because the goal in an art, like the goal of me talking about this, is to promote my own software, right? But I mean, I want to first of all say that's kind of like counterproductive, right? Like, if I tell you there's many apps and mine is the best, I mean, how believable is that? It's just not a very effective thing to say. I don't think normally companies do this. It's just way too simplistic to share that message with people, right? But so basically that's not what this is about. What this is about is the fact that I've been running an app for 7 years for coaches like yourself, and I've seen things, and I have access to data that most coaches wouldn't have in their position, because as a coach, you know about coaching, you can speak to one or two coaches, but from my perspective, I've seen thousands of coaches using my app. I've gotten their feedback. Sometimes they like the app, sometimes they like it very much, sometimes they don't like it, sometimes they need certain features that we don't have, or sometimes there's all sorts of, they cancel, they go to another competitor, or they come from a competitor, and that's the kind of information that you cannot really find in a book, or you cannot, like, and companies are not gonna really publish this because it's sort of a bit of a competitive advantage to have this data. So I'm gonna share this, and basically I want to talk about how, so an app like mine, like Nutria, I mean, the way we make money, really, I want to just explain this, is we basically make money when we get a long-term user. So we offer plans that start at $30 a month or $35 a month. So what we see basically is two types of customers. When somebody signs up, we offer a free trial as well. So what happens is people sign up for a trial, nutritionists or coaches or personal trainers, and one or two, there's two things that happen. One is they really love the app, and then they're like, this is amazing, it's the best thing, it does everything I need, and then they use it for the long term. And we have some customers that have been around since 2016, since we launched, or since 2017 as well. So we have people that have used the app for years and years, and consequently, as over the years, they have paid us thousands and thousands of dollars, even tens of thousands. So the people in the bigger plans. So that is really how we make money, when we find somebody that likes the app so much and finds it so valuable that they use it long term. And now, to contrast with that, the other type of customer we get is basically somebody that signs up for the app and tries it a bit, and then decides it's not for them, and they cancel. So when that happens, we make zero money, and at most they sign up, they pay for a month, maybe they forgot to cancel, and then they ask for a refund. So really, we're not really making any money, or even if they use it for a month, it's not really profitable for us that much, because we have to provide them with support and train them, and if the app basically is a bad fit for them, we haven't done a good enough job. When that happens, we attracted the wrong type of customer, and we are really wasting time, and they are wasting time. So we don't, basically, that's why I don't want to say we are the best app forever. I mean, we are the best app as long as we are a right fit for your specific needs. So for example, we provide meal plans and a meal plan generator, and so if you're a coach that wants to include a nutrition component in your program, then we could potentially be a good fit. But for example, if you want to provide more like your personal trainer, you don't really want to delve into nutrition and you just want a app that clients can follow, and you want to focus on the fitness training, there are better apps for that. Or if you want to have group sessions, for example, that's necessarily not the best use case for our app. So when a customer that is the wrong fit for our app signs up, what happens is they start to ask questions, and they start always to ask, like, do you have this feature, and do you have this feature? And we don't really have those features, because they're just looking for something sort of similar, but it's not us, right? So that is always a good sign. When we start to get these questions, we know this customer is gonna cancel probably quite soon. And that is, it's not just the same. This is the same for every company out there, basically. You're gonna sign up, you're gonna do a trial, and either it's gonna be like, wow, this is amazing and it meets all my needs, or you're gonna be like, I'm not sure, or and sometimes you're gonna be like, no, definitely no, like this is not at all what I need. So this is why I want to provide you with education. Like, this is the world has moved on. In the past, when before the internet, the most infamous salespeople were used car salespeople, because you would go to their stores and they knew which cars were good and which ones were lemons, and they would have this informational advantage, if you will. And you couldn't trust these people, because they were incentivized with their commission structure to sell you the most expensive cars and to make big margins, and you could end up with a car that was basically gonna break and be completely useless. So this is not at all the world we live in anymore. These days, anybody that wants to buy anything is gonna go online, look for information, search. Like, I read a book recently that said that sometimes somebody they want to buy something expensive or a big commitment, they may check 300 websites before even making a purchasing decision. So by the time, if somebody like you checks my app, I have to assume that you've seen at least 10 other apps, and you may have been using different apps for years. So essentially, the best I can do is to provide information and to hope to attract the people that have the best fit for what I'm selling. So that is my perspective. And now there are other people that will be able to give you different sort of feedback on what apps to choose. So in the article, I made a table with different sources of advice, and they have pros and cons. So for instance, just briefly, you can get advice from coaches, so like other coaches, personal colleagues. So these people can give you their personal opinion, and if they are doing a work that is similar to yours, then that's going to be very valuable. And it's going to be unbiased, because they don't need to sell you any specific app. They don't have any interest in promoting a specific app. But then the disadvantage of opinions from other coaches is that just a personal opinion may be unreliable. After all, it's a single data point, so you shouldn't lean too much on it. Then on the other hand, you have reviews. So a review is aggregating the feedback of a lot of users. So you sort of get an average, and you can rule out any crazy people out there that just, or anybody that's just angry with the world and hates everything, or anybody that's just overly enthusiastic. You're gonna get an average. And when you check reviews, you can also check the 1-star reviews, if there are any, in case that that will tell you what can go wrong with the app. So that, if there are 1-star reviews, sometimes you may be fine, like it's rare, and sometimes you'll be like, this is unacceptable, right? And reviews can also tell you about more intangible aspects about a product. So they can tell you about customer support, for example. And the disadvantages of reviews is that you need to make sure that the score sort of represents an aggregate of data that is representative of your profession, right? So for instance, if a product has 1,000 reviews, but most of them come from coaches that work, for example, online and you work in person, or coaches that work in another country, and or coaches that or people that are not even coaches, right? If it comes from professionals that may have different needs than yours, then those reviews are not going to be so reliable. It may be best to dig through the reviews and find the ones that actually come from people similar to you. And you also need to be aware of fake reviews. So I have some tips that I'm going to touch on later to avoid that. Then you can, so that's reviews. Then you have experts or influencers, so you can follow their advice. And the advantage of doing that is that if you find some of the most successful coaches in the industry, that hopefully, people that are very successful, it's reasonable to think that if I do the same thing they're doing, maybe I'll be successful too. So that could be their advice. But then the disadvantage again is one data point, and also you need to be aware that some influencers may be promoting specific companies. They may have sponsorship deals, so the content may not be like, you need to make sure it's something they use personally, not something that they have been paid to promote. And then finally, you have apps for coaches. So somebody like me, the advice I can give you is, I know things that I've mentioned, like the feedback that people give us, or what are the trends in the market that you're not going to get from anywhere else. But obviously the disadvantage is that what I say, when I talk about my own product, I'm going to be biased, right? So you need to take that into account. So now, touching upon that, I'm going to delve into, so what kind of information do I have as somebody that provides an app for coaches that most companies will not share, right? So I know the following. I know what are the top features demanded by our users, by our coaches. So we've had thousands of coaches sign up for the app. They submit feedback. What do they want? What do they show dissatisfaction with, or when they cancel their subscription, what is missing in the app, right? That hopefully I'm going to use this information to improve the product, but it also tells me that there are sort of different types of users that I've seen that care about different things, and the features that people care about tend to cluster as well. So like, just to give you an example, in my app we get people that care really about client records and following up with them, and they want the client records to be very detailed. And then there are people that just care about meal plans. So we have a heavy meal plans component. You can create meal plans very effectively, and depending on, maybe you are one of these types, or maybe you care about something else. So this is the kind of feedback and data that we get. And I know what is great about my own app, and what are users raving about, what they find very useful, and then what are the features that are less useful. So if you go to any website, you go to, for instance, our website, and you check the features, you're going to see a bunch of features, but you don't know which ones are best and which ones are not so impressive, right? And from my data, I can see that some of the, like for example, in my own app, the best feature we have is the meal plans. That's the one that the most users use, and according to the analytics, the users spend the most time in there. And some other features are maybe not so important. So, for instance, we implemented some video conferencing feature that allows coaches to have calls with their clients, and compared to meal plans, it has maybe 1% of the usage. So that is because presumably, talking to my clients, I think they just use Zoom, or they use Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or Skype to talk with their clients. So we got some demand to build this feature to have chat and to have video calls with clients. And some of our users use it, but there are better options out there, like using Zoom, for depending on what you want, right? So some people want to have it all in one app, and some people want to have specialized software for video calls, like Zoom. So like other apps will also have their important core features that all their users like, and they'll have some other minor ones. So that's the kind of insider knowledge that you have if you provide the app. I also know how long it takes people to learn my software, so it's relatively easy, because that's why we offer a 14-day free trial, because that seems to be enough for most people to get used to it, and we have training materials and stuff. But yeah, I mean, when you cannot just take my word for it, you have to check unbiased reviews from other people so that you know if what I'm saying is true or not. Then yeah, I know which people are coming from another app. So sometimes we get people that say, I was using this other app before and I canceled and I found yours and it's much better. And sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes it's like, I tried your app, but unfortunately it doesn't fit my needs and I switched to this other one. So there seems to be a few good apps that people try, because if you go online, you can find 200 apps, but many of them are really abandoned projects that are not maintained, or some of them are obsolete, or some of them are very new and they don't yet have many features. So depending on what you use or what you want, you're gonna have different apps, and not all of them are the same, right? So there's all sorts of metrics I have, and obviously there's some things I cannot really share because they're private, but essentially what I'm trying to say is that I'm gonna give you some tips based on the information I have, and hopefully that's gonna be helpful. Because yeah, I mean, the typical buying experience for a coach in NutriAdmin is they, as I said earlier, maybe between 30% of our users or so are personal trainers or coaches, and mainly they're attracted by the meal planning software feature and meal plan generator. So we have a generator that can create plans in 60 seconds. It's really good feature. If you are interested, you can check it out on NutriAdmin. And but then we also got people that try the app and they just find, do you have a feature to schedule exercise sessions? And we don't really have that. There are other apps out there that have exercise videos and workouts, and you can assemble a workout. So that's, for example, an example of somebody that really likes the meal plans. They're gonna sign up and they're gonna be amazing. And then, in fact, some of our best customers are coaches, and we have a particular customer that has a team of 10 coaches, and they've been using the software for years, and they're so happy with it. They're making 70 or 80 meal plans per week. So that's really a good fit for them. But then we also have loads of people that try the app and they cancel within a day, and they say, sorry, this is not what I was looking for, which is completely normal. I mean, if you think about it, a reasonable person will try at least 3 or 4 or 5 apps, and maybe even 10. So if they try 10, let's say the average is 5 maybe, then that means that as a software provider, a lot of the free trials you get, people are going to cancel because they're trying other apps. So assuming you are the same as every other app, you're going to get 20% of those customers if they try 5 apps. If you are exceptional, maybe you'll get 30 or 40% of the apps, because people will prefer your app versus the competitors. But if you check online, there are many apps that have good reviews. So there doesn't seem to be some single app that is taking all the market share. There are other industries in which that's different. So for instance, if you check search engines, it's just dominated by Google. Or if you check social media, you have apps like Instagram, and there are millions of social media apps out there, but nobody uses them. So there are those markets that have these monopolies pretty much. But that's not the case at all for apps for coaches. There are a variety of them for different user types. Right, so what else do I know from running the app? I know about cancellation feedback. So this is the reasons when somebody cancels our software, we ask them, why do you cancel? Hopefully we want to address that, but obviously if we are not able to address it, they're free to cancel. And the most common cancellations we get are the software is too expensive, or the client doesn't have that, the user doesn't have enough clients. So we have competitive pricing very similar to other competitors. So often when somebody cancels, mentioning that the software is quite expensive, we find that it's really because they cannot really justify the cost. So that tends to be true when people are starting out. So if you're starting out your coaching business, maybe you don't have enough clients yet, and in that case you probably should look for free tools or for cheap plans. We have a starter plan for anybody that wants to try for free with heavy limitations, and there are some other apps that have other free plans, and often again they're very limited. You can do a little bit of work in it, and then you need to upgrade to do more, because when you provide an app for coaches, is is not so easy for companies to provide a free plan because it's a relatively small market. So I'll talk about this more later. Another key thing that people mention is that a key feature is missing. So that is a classic. That is just, there are so many apps out there, and let's say you really need workout exercise videos. So either the app provides this or not. If it doesn't provide it, you're going to cancel and there is nothing you can do, right? And if this is provided, then it comes, the question becomes, is it good quality enough, or is it done in a way that works for me, right? So those are the considerations. So that's why for you as a consumer looking for software, you are likely going to try an app and you're going to kind of cancel for the same reasons, right? You didn't find the right fit, right feature, or it was too expensive, or you're not ready yet. Like, that's another consideration. Another common cancellation reason we get is that this is temporary and this person will be back. So this also happens if some people work seasonally. So maybe you only work in particular months of the year. So it's going to be good for you to find an app that allows you to like pause your membership and come back at a later time. And then finally, another thing is, another cancellation reason we get is that it doesn't work for their region. So mainly in our case, for instance, we cater to the English-speaking countries like the US, UK, Australia, Canada, etc. And there are some users that you can still use it in if you are from other countries, but it works best for the English-speaking countries because that's our target market. So if you try some software and you need it to be specifically suitable for your particular country, you may have to look for local options that work for your location. So that's another consideration. And basically, so what does it mean for you when you're trying to choose the best app for coaches? So you shouldn't be afraid to test a few apps and cancel if they don't provide what they need. And most of the things you're going to try are going to be a clear yes or no. And then if you have 2 or 3 that are good, you can evaluate them a bit further to figure out which one's best for you. And that's, there are all sorts of apps out there. Some of them may be objectively the biggest in the market or the oldest or the most popular. That could be measured. Somebody may say we're the biggest. That may or may not be true. Usually if somebody's making that claim, they must be pretty big. Otherwise it would be quite easy to disprove. But then you should be skeptical about anything just claiming to be the best for everybody in every aspect. Like the other day I was walking around, just a little aside, I was walking around in London and I just saw this quite mediocre looking like fast food place that said the best chicken in the world, or maybe it was just the best chicken in London. But that's quite a bold claim. Like, I'm not sure they have the best chicken in a city of 10 million people. It looked like a very mediocre place, but people will make those claims. Making claims is free, so just be skeptical and critical. And if somebody claims to be the best, especially at something very broad, just take into account that probably is not true. So another consideration. So what about the size of the company providing the software, right? So does this matter? Like, is it the same to have software that is produced by a small company versus a large company? So my consideration here is the following. So if you think about the biggest software companies in the world, you have the Googles, the Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, etc. So how they have so much money and they have so many developers, and some of them are very smart. So how come they're not making the best app for coaches or the best app for everything, really? And the reality of that is that these markets like coaches, they're too small for them. So a large corporation like Microsoft or Apple, they are busy chasing the biggest markets out there, so consumer markets or large corporation markets, and they're competing with each other. So they don't have the resources to lose focus and launch a niche app in a relatively small market, because then the other big company will eat them up. So that's why when you look for software for like specialized software, like software for coaching that does everything you want for work, that is a relatively small niche. So just for reference, an app like Facebook, I think last time I checked, it had over 2 billion users. But if you check the number of coaches in the US or in the European Union, you're gonna find that it's less than 1 million, or maybe around 1 million. It's just 1,000 times smaller than the number of users of Facebook, right? I mean, everything's smaller than the number of users of Facebook. So what that means is that the company that is going to cater to this market is necessarily going to be smaller. And the converse is true as well. If you have a company that is a startup of 2 people, there are limits to what they can do. They cannot chase a massive market. Like, they cannot make a search engine to compete with Google unless they get very lucky and they get massive investment, and then they grow very fast, and eventually they become a big company. Like, many of these big companies started as small, but they grew very quickly. So the takeaway is it's going to be a relatively small company that's going to make your software. And there are 3 types of categories. That's more, but these are 3 that I find are useful to consider. So one is single product companies. So a small team, 1 to 10 people, that works just solely on making an app for coaches. So that's, for instance, our case in Nutriamen. That's just 3 of us. We're going to hire another person, and we're going to grow our team a bit, but we're a small company. Then you have, and we make just 1 product, which is NutriAdmin. So this is 100% our focus. So then, on the other hand, you have multi-product companies. So this is going to be a slightly larger company, maybe 10 people to 100, or maybe even up to 1,000. And these companies are going to have a variety of offerings. Like, often they're going to have a suite of products, and they're going to sell separate products. So maybe they started with an app for personal trainers, and then they launched an app for nutritionists, and then they launched an app for coaches, and they sort of create this family of apps because they can leverage their existing technical expertise and their existing apps. Or just think of, Microsoft Office, there's a variety of apps like PowerPoint, Word, and Excel. Obviously, Microsoft is a huge company now, but back in the early days when they launched Office for the first time, they were smaller, and they started like this, launching this family of products, and each product was used by different people. Sometimes people use all the products, but sometimes they use them independently. So that's type 2. And type 3 is general purpose product companies. So this is also a larger company of 10 to 1,000 people, and they're gonna provide a very polished product because they have a lot of people working on it to make it really good. But it's gonna be a product for very general use. So, for example, you're gonna get an app that gives you an appointments software. So it just does appointments, but it does appointments really well. Or you're gonna have something like, you're gonna have something like Zoom. It just does video calls, video conference, and some like extra features associated with video calls, but it does it really well. And they're able to just make this relatively simple product because they are hoping to sell it to millions of people, right? So that is so if a company is smaller or bigger or stuff, that doesn't necessarily make the bigger company better. It just changes the kinds of products that they can give you. The same way that, the biggest restaurant in the world is McDonald's, but that doesn't make it the best restaurant, right? Like, I would never go to McDonald's. I'd rather eat in a family restaurant. So you're going to have a family restaurant, is the other side of the spectrum, one specialized, maybe like a small team of 3 people, and they make a few dishes and they make them really well, but they're not going to have great Wi-Fi maybe, or the toilets are not going to be as neat as in a chain restaurant. So there are different pros and cons that you get. So essentially, if you get a single product small company, it's going to be really specialized. So if with NutriAdmin, for example, we make software for nutritionists and coaches and trainers, and we hope to make the best software for this market. And if you're not in this market, the software is useless to you, right? So we focus on a narrow slice of the market, and we want to make the software really, really good for these people. We get all the feedback from the people, and there are many other competitors that are like that. They just have one product and they want to make the best for this specific niche. So then the multi-product people, the advantage that you may have is that if it is a larger company and they've been successful making a product, hopefully they'll be successful making a second product. But that's not always the case. And some companies may abandon the second products if they're not profitable. So there's that risk. And then the general purpose bigger companies, they'll give you something polished, but it's going to be less specialized. So Zoom is going to be very good for video calls, but that's it. It's not going to do is not going to create a meal plan for you, for example. That is way too specialized. So those are the considerations. And now, having mentioned all of this, I'm going to move on to how to find trustworthy reviews on the best apps for coaches. So that's going to be the next topic. So essentially, you can get reviews online. And for instance, if you want to find a restaurant, you can find good reviews in Google Maps or Yelp. And there is places for reviews of different types of products, like Airbnb or Uber can give you good reviews on hosts or guests or car rides. But then when it comes to software, I think one of the best places to look for is called Capterra, and it's spelled Capterra, Capterra. And most people haven't heard about this company, and I didn't hear about them either until now. But that's basically because they evaluate professional software. So most people, they don't buy professional software on a regular basis. So it's not like a restaurant. Like, you may have been to thousands of restaurants, so you've checked them out in Google Maps or in Yelp many times before. But when you buy software for your work, I mean, if you work for some larger company, perhaps somebody else in the company chose the software, so you didn't have to evaluate it yourself. And if you're evaluating it yourself, it may be the first time you're doing this. So that's why you haven't heard about them before. But you can, you don't have to take my word. If you Google software reviews, or you check software for coaches review, or software for personal trainers, nutritionists reviews online, the first results in Google are going to be Capterra. And if it's not Capterra, it's going to be either another website called GetApp or Software Advice. And both of those are also owned by the same company that owns Capterra. So that's there's those three that basically belong to the same company. And just an aside, there's another company called G2Sell, which is a competitor of Capterra, and it has similar reviews as well. And now this, in my opinion, these are the best places for software reviews because, number one, they specialize on software reviews. You cannot review a restaurant in there. It's just for software products. And in particular, I think it's mostly software products for work, but haven't checked. But I mean, I know that it's very good for software products for work, like an app for coaches. And what makes it good is that, number one, only users can submit reviews. So they have a team at Capterra that is going to be reviewing the reviews that people submit to make sure that they are legitimate. Number two, they're going to verify ID. So, for instance, they're going to ask you for many things, like a screenshot of you using the software with your name so that they know you're a user. They're going to ask you for social media profiles. They're going to ask you for your company registration number, etc. And they're going to check. And if they're not sure you're a real person, they won't publish the review. And that's because their whole business model relies on the reviews being legitimate and reliable. If they start to get fake reviews, their whole business will stop working. So that's why they have a team of people that are manually reviewing it. It's quite labor intensive. Then on top of all of that, they have they provide you with the ability to compare apps. So you can put apps side by side and compare prices, features, language, platform. So you can, for instance, put together side by side all the apps that are available in English for coaching online, including calorie tracking, and available for Android and iPhone, let's say. And you put all of that side by side. And you cannot do that in a general reviews website because it's not just for software. So they're not going to have data on, let's say, the platform where the app is used, like whether it's a web app or a smartphone app, etc. And then the reviews are structured, so people will they get different scores. So you can have a score on how easy it is to learn or to use the software, what are the pros and cons, what are other alternatives that you've considered, what is the value for money, likelihood to recommend to a friend, and I think they make and customer support as well. So customer support is important because it's the kind of thing that you can only really know if you've experienced it yourself or if you read the experiences of other people. And you can check all of this in Capterra. And then you may be wondering, okay, so if they have all these people reviewing data in Capterra, how do they make money and how is this worth it? So you can check in their website, but basically companies can pay money to Capterra to put their listings on the top. So that doesn't mean that, they don't get the reviews are the reviews, and you may have terrible reviews and you pay the money. It's just to show at the top of the list. So like I don't personally do this, but some companies do. And it's similar to Google. When you Google something, you'll see the ads on the top that companies are paying for, and the rest of the organic results underneath. So if you check the website and you get a list of a lot of apps, a trick is you can go to the top and click on sort by highest rated, so that you get the sorting by ratings, because by default it's going to show you just the apps that pay money first. So yeah, that money allows them to have a full team of people reviewing each single review to make sure it's accurate. So really good resource. And then okay, so how would you go around checking these reviews? So my advice would be, there's loads of competitors out there. Like we have loads of competitors. If you check right now coaching apps in Capterra, I think you're gonna get over 200 results. So that's way too many apps, and you're not gonna be able to evaluate them all. So, but the good news is you don't have to evaluate them all. There's a lot of them you can cross off very quickly. So, what you can do is go through the list and just remove anything that has been around for a short time, like a year or less. Then you can remove anything that has no reviews or very few reviews. You can remove anything that has low reviews ratings. You can also eliminate anything that doesn't offer the features you need. So let's say if you really, really want your app to have meal plans or teleconferencing or exercise videos, you can just filter out anything that doesn't offer those. There's also in a review site, you can also evaluate the price range. So if you have a particular budget, some apps may be very expensive and some may be cheaper, so you can just filter out anything that falls outside your budget. And finally, you can filter out anything for the wrong platform. So for instance, if you want a native smartphone app, or if you just want a website that you can use, you can filter by that and remove anything that is, because there may be some apps, for example, that are exclusively for Windows and you have a Mac, so you can filter all of that. And then after you filter all of that, that's going to shrink the list significantly. And then the next step I recommend you do is, unfortunately, like in every, not a lot of people know this, but basically if you check these reviews at the top, some of the biggest apps you're going to get, they are really generic apps. So I mentioned earlier the generic apps, like for instance, if you check software for nutritionists, so I think that is the best fit for NutriAdmin, because we have coaches, but also mainly we have nutritionists. So you check that. However, the top company that you're going to see in the list in Capterra is called Acuity Scheduling, and they just provide scheduling, and they're at the top because they're one of these general purpose apps that has 5,500 reviews at the time of recording this. And yeah, I mean, they're good. They have good reviews, so probably they're very good for scheduling. But you're not going to be able to do something like meal plans in there, because it's not really an app for nutritionists. It's more like an app that some nutritionists will use to do some of their work. So that is the nuance. You need to know exactly what you're looking for. Like, do you want an all-in-one app that has everything you need? Or do you want just an app for a specific purpose? Like if you want an app just for processing payments, or an app just to send email or phone reminders to your clients for appointments, then you can just look for, I would look for appointment app. And if you want an all-in-one app to do all your work, I would filter out any of these generic apps, because yeah, even if they have good reviews and they look big and they look very impressive, if they're just gonna focus on one or two features, that's not gonna be what you're looking for. So that's how you filter through all of these options. And yeah, and if I'm honest, when people cancel our software, sometimes we ask them, do you cancel because of a competitor? And also people sometimes come from a competitor, so they didn't like the competitor and they come to us. And basically there are 200 apps out there, but I always hear the same like 3 or 4 names. So if you're curious, is so people cancel from these apps and they come to us, and also they leave our app and they go to the other ones. So the most popular ones I've heard are, so ours is NutriAdmin, then there's Nutrium, there is Practice Better, there is Eat Right, what else? There is, if somebody just wants apps for calendar, sometimes they just use Calendly. And then There's my PT Hub, I think, or my PT Coach. Not sure, uh, but those are kind of like some of the most common ones. And then there are some other names out there that I never hear. Like, for instance, when I started NutriAdmin back in 2016, there were a bunch of competitors. Like some of them looked like software that hasn't been updated for 10 years. And that's probably the case because I've never heard somebody cancel and they left for one of those. So you definitely want to use the software that is more up to date and that is constantly being updated and enhanced. And yeah, like those are just some names that I've seen. And again, you don't have to take my word for it. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are 200 apps listed for coaching software, and yet from my perspective, when I'm running the business and people are coming from other software to me or they are leaving my software to another, I just hear the same 4 or 5 names. So that's basically the list. That many of these other companies in the list, they either are very small projects or they've been abandoned or they are a completely different category. So probably not what you're looking for. And now, okay, so final comment on biased and unbiased information. So everything I'm saying is biased. Like, just don't, anything I say about an app or specific thing, you should verify on your own. I think that the reviews are a good way to verify because they are unbiased and they come from people that don't have a stake in any particular app, unless they are paid for it or something. But usually that should be evident. And you just should use your critical thinking and educate yourself and learn as much as you can so that you can. I mean, essentially, the reviews, they allow you to verify if what the companies are saying is true. So I represent a company, so everything I say, if it sounds reasonable to you, fine. If not, you should verify it with, it all depends how much time you have, right? But you should verify anything important with third party, with opinions and third party reviews, and also with your own experience to see if it holds true or not. And the same goes for anything that any other company says. So anything that company says is kind of like, it's only true once it's proven true with your experience and with people's opinions and reviews. Right. So with all of this that we've unpacked, there's a lot to unpack, right? But hopefully you're getting some useful tips on how to choose the app. And now we get to the practical part, which is how do you choose an app, right? Like, let's say you're starting your coaching business or you've been around for a while and you want to choose an app and hopefully you're going to use it for 10 years. So it's a long-term decision. You want to make the right choice. So here's what I suggest. And you may do some of these steps or you may do your own steps, but this is just a suggestion that I think could work well. So number one would be you make a short list. So you start by just making a list of all the apps that have good reviews in your space, apps that show high in Google. So if you search for software for health coaches or software for fitness, software for nutritionists, the top apps you see on the first page tend to be better. In order to show high in Google, you need to be updating your app regularly. So an app that has been sort of obsolete for 10 years is not going to show high in Google, even if it used to be good back in the day. Google values things that are current. So that is a positive signal. Then like you should put in your list apps that you've heard good things about, so from colleagues or from other trustworthy sources, and apps that you're simply curious about, that you heard about and they look intriguing, so you should put them all in the list. And you should discard any apps that don't meet the criteria that I mentioned earlier. So any apps that have low reviews or that don't offer the features you need or that are too expensive, etc. And then once you have those apps in the list, you want to just make the most of all the free trials. So at NutriAdmin, we offer a 14-day free trial, and the majority of apps out there offer a similar trial, or at least they will give you a money-back guarantee. If they don't give you a free trial or a money-back guarantee, that's a bit of a red flag in my opinion, because I mean, come on, like, you want people to commit without even seeing the app. Like, that's a bit disappointing. But essentially, the trial is critical to evaluate several things. One is how responsive the team is, and when you ask a question, how helpful are they? So if you sign up for my app and you have a question and you ask, we're going to do our best to reply with useful information fast, and every company is going to try to do the same, right? But every company is going to claim to have amazing customer support, but you do the trial and you find out if this is true or not. Like, do you get some sort of robo answer that is unhelpful, or do you get like it takes them a week to get back to you, or do you get a fast response and it's helpful? That's what you're gonna get with the trial. Then you're gonna get just, do you like the software or not? Is it easy to use, or you get lost? Does it load fast in my computer? Like practical things like that. Like maybe the software looks amazing and then you load it and it just doesn't work, right? So that's the kind of thing. You should probably do a trial early on to test for things like this instead of spending too much time researching it, because you wanna make sure it works. And does it offer the features that you're looking for? And then, in my opinion, the best way to evaluate the software is to use it as closely as possible to your normal work. So you should do what I call sample work. So, for instance, if you do a lot of meal plans, sign up to the software and do a meal plan and see how easy it is, and if you like the result, and if it has all the options that you want. And if you have, for example, in NutriAdmin, sometimes people will sign up and they will create a mock client record. You can use your own email, so that is not a real client, it's just yourself with your own email. And this way you can send an appointment request and book an appointment, fill in some notes in the software, create a plan, a report, and you just see, like, is this saving me time, and is this useful, and does it look professional for the client, and do I like it, and do I see that this is going to be a good idea for me going forward, and how reliable is the software as well? Like, am I going to encounter any bugs? And if I encounter a bug, how easy it is to get it fixed? Or if I contact technical support, are they competent? You're going to answer all those questions. And then, before you, because you're going to, hopefully you're evaluating a few softwares, you want to evaluate, at the very minimum 3 or 5, but hopefully more like 10. Although that's a lot of time. You get better at, like when you do several of them, if you sign up, like if you've done 3 or 4, you will sign up for another one. Like it may seem like a lot then, but if you sign up for one and within 10 minutes you realize this is just much worse than the other one I tried, you don't have to test it so exhaustively, and eventually there's going to be a clear winner. And just to mention, just don't forget to cancel the free trial to avoid being charged. So set a reminder in your Google Calendar, because if you're trying many softwares, it can be easy to forget. And annoyingly, some of the softwares have very similar sounding names. Like many of them are Nutri something, like they're NutriAdmin, and sometimes we get an email of someone confused saying, I want to cancel my subscription, and they're actually referring to another company that has a similar sounding name. So doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. So just be organized so that you don't, because the worst thing is if you end up paying for something, and if that happens in our case, we'll give you a refund, because again, I said earlier, we make money only when we find these people that are going to use the software for the very long term. So we don't want to have like waste time, or our time or the time of our customers with people for whom the software is a bad fit. Like 95% of our money comes really from these long-term users. So that's really the focus of our efforts. And I would imagine it's the same for every app, because in the past you had this software that you sold to companies for $1,000 a year or something. And now you have this software that is $30 a month, which is a relatively smaller amount. So the user is really paying the cost over the long term. And if somebody just uses it for a month, it's not worth it for the app often. So, right. So now I'm going to talk about pricing. So different apps, obviously there are some free apps out there, and there are some apps that charge you a little bit of money, and the range, some apps can be really expensive. So pricing is an important consideration. When you're starting out, if you don't have much money, a lot of these apps are about saving you time. So NutriAdmin can save you a lot of time. You can certainly use it when you're starting out, but it's going to become more useful the more the busier you are. So if you really are strapped for money, you may be best, you can use some of the free plans or some of the apps that have very cheap plans for people starting out, or you may just be fine doing things on paper without an app for now. Focus on getting clients, and then once you have the clients, you can try the apps, and basically obviously choose the pricing that makes sense for your situation. And then when you evaluate the price, I think you should just evaluate it as how much value does this app bring me. So like if you're making $10 an hour, and this app is saving you 50 hours of work, that is $500 that is saving you per, like if you would have to hire another person to help to do the work, or if you would have to work a lot of hours, if it's saving you, if you calculate it's saving you $500 a month and it costs you only $50 a month, then in my opinion that's a great deal, right? And like psychologically we don't always make these best decisions. Like sometimes I'm sure that like there are things I do in my life that I could pay somebody or use a little app to do it much cheaper, but I haven't yet realized. I think that when it comes to, if you have software for entertainment, like something like Netflix, some people may think that is a superfluous expense because I can entertain myself without paying money. And but when it comes to something for work, any tool that is making you more effective at work, saving you time, or allowing you to provide extra services to clients, hence making more money, I mean, that is not the place to save money. Obviously, that's kind of, it's bias coming from me because I sell software for coaches, but you have to calculate this yourself. How much value does this app bring me? How much money does it save me? And is it worth the money? And which should be obvious, it should be obvious if the app is giving you enough value. And then if you have, for example, an app out there that is $45, and another one is $50, and another one is $48, like many of them are going to have very similar prices. And I'd say just like the difference is so small that you should probably just pick the one that gives you more value long term. It may be the cheapest one, it may be the one that's slightly more expensive. But just think, if this app helps me bring an extra client or just save an extra couple of hours a month, is it worth it or not? And like if you're gonna be saving $1 a month, but the other app would have given you an extra client a month, really you should probably go with the one that gets you extra clients. So all of these are the considerations. And even if it's a small difference, these apps, you're going to be using it for the long term if you're successful with your career and if the app is useful, and small differences will compound over time. So if over time you made the right choice, you're getting some extra clients, you're going to be building your business, and over time you're going to be doing better than you would have been if you were losing this edge. Another consideration. So should you use one app or should you use multiple apps? So that depends. From the Triaming, I've seen both things work. So everybody needs things like scheduling, payments, client communications. Those are quite basic. And honestly, if you want to have, for example, video calls, the best is going to be something like Zoom or Skype. And that's because it's a big company that specializes on this feature, and nobody can do it better than them. But you may want to, for example, we see in Nutriaming, some people use Zoom for their calls, and then they use Nutriaming for things like meal plans. But then alternatively, some people prefer having everything in one app. So if you just need to do occasionally a call, some people prefer to do it within Nutriaming, and this way they don't need to handle a separate Zoom account and pay for it. Our video chat is decent. It's not as good as something like Zoom because nobody can compete with them. If you think about the competitors, there are Skype, owned by Microsoft, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft as well, and Google Meet. So they're big companies. It's just hard to make these sort of general purpose apps to be very polished. So like the same, you can use a different app for communicating with clients or for scheduling, and the process. So if you use an all-in-one app, you're going to have everything in one place. It's going to be more secure. All your data is going to be synced, and all the features are going to talk to each other. So for instance, you book an appointment with a client and the client record gets synced automatically with the app. Whilst some of these common features like scheduling that have a wide market, they're not going to be as polished as with a general purpose app. And then when you have multiple apps, the advantage is, some of these features are going to be really polished, but the disadvantage is probably you may pay more money if you need to buy 3 or 4 different apps, and hopefully they have integration so you can sync all the data, but that may not be possible. So that's important. Another consideration, customer support evaluation. So in an ideal world, you wouldn't have to care about customer support and everything would work fine. But in the real world of software, things go wrong. And sometimes these are technical problems, like the app doesn't load or something, and you wanna, during the trial and during the first few months, you wanna, if you encounter an issue, every app is gonna have issues sometimes. I mean, some have more than others. So obviously, if it is every day, that's not a good sign. But you want to reach out to the customer support and see if they're competent and if they can fix things quick. That's important. And I find that with something like customer support, companies tend to be quite consistent. So basically, it's either going to be great or it's going to be awful. And it's going to be great when the company has great people working on customer support, and this is something they prioritize, and they are educated and they respond fast. And it's going to be awful when the company just doesn't care about customers, and they find that they make more money. They just outsource it to some people that have barely any knowledge of the product, and or maybe the company is just in distress and they cannot cope with it. So if you find during the trial that the service is great or awful, probably you should expect it's going to be the same for the next few years. So that's why a little taste of it just gives you the whole story. And yeah, so that's everything I wanted to mention here. It's already a long video. So essentially, just to give you a summary, if you head to the blog article, nutriamin.com/blog/best apps for coaches, so it's separated with dashes instead of spaces. I'll put the link in the description. I have a checklist there so that you can tick all the boxes for everything if you want to follow that box. I just want to close giving you a summary. So what are the top apps for coaches? If you are a coach and you want the best app for work, what is the best app? So honest answer, I don't know. Nobody knows. It's only you know, basically. It all depends on your circumstances. And you're going to find those rankings and lists out there, but I consider they're a bit disingenuous. They're just, people are desperate for finding a ranking, because, I mean, I wish it was that easy. Somebody has, if somebody has done the thinking, how awesome that is. But do you want to spend 10 or 20 years using the same app just based on somebody else's thinking? Like, what are the odds that that's going to be the best app for you? Probably, I mean, I'd argue not so high. So, I mean, unless somebody has done some objective research. But often these lists are just cheap articles that marketers pump out because people love to search articles, and they're just clickbait. And you should probably do your own research and your own thinking for such an important decision. And then, because the benefit is, if you find the best app and you're going to be 10% more productive over the next 20 years, that is going to compound. So if you're aware of compound interest, that 10% accumulates massively over time. You don't want to spend time in making the right choice, basically. And next, the real work. So all you've heard so far is just talking. Now comes the doing. So you need to make your short list, combine it with, and also take my advice and combine it with other advice that you find trustworthy. So hopefully if you've watched so far in the video, you found the information useful. And, but don't just think, this is my opinion. There's going to be other people. This is my perspective as a provider of apps, as a software developer. At the very least, you should get the opinion of some other coaches in your space that are hopefully let's say 5 to 10 years ahead of you in your career, so they're a bit more experienced, and you can get their opinion, and just find all the sources that you consider trustworthy, and don't feel pressure to just haphazardly pick one app and stick with it forever, because it honestly pays off to take your time, become educated, become informed, and then make an informed decision, and just separate the mediocre and the exceptional. There's going to be some apps out there that are going to be great for you. And I'm not telling you specifically which apps, because number one, I'm biased. Like, you cannot really trust my specific recommendations for specific apps, and I haven't tried them. I'm not a coach, so I haven't tried all the apps for coaches, so I don't know which ones are. All I know is what people like in my app and what they like less, and I know what makes software good. I know things from the other side of the industry, from the software side, and and then we launched Nutriamin back in 2016, and we still have some loyal users from those first couple of years that have been using the app non-stop. So that's 7 or 8 years, and that could be you as well. When you make the right choice with the right software, you could be using it for 10 years or 20 years until you retire, for your whole career, if the software keeps on being updated. Like, I've been using Microsoft Excel for 20 years because it does the job very well. And that's what you get. That's why it's such a successful product, right? So once you pick an app, it can be hard to switch to another one. So that's why don't be lazy. And I mean, it's the same with many things in life, like picking a house to buy or even picking a romantic partner. If you go just on one date with one person and then you marry them and you have never met anyone else, I mean, it depends on your culture and in your preferences, and maybe there's such thing as love at first sight, but some other people would prefer to see a few options at least, or it's debatable, right? But just don't want to go off topic here. But essentially, when it comes to software, there's no emotion. It's just a practical decision. You want to just pick something that does the job and is useful. So you want to make these evaluations, do the trials, make your shortlist, check some boxes, compare them side by side, do the trials, get a feel for the customer support, check good reviews in a place like Capterra, and after all of that, if you make the choice, you can be confident that you did a good job and you were informed, and if somebody out there is much worse than another one, you will quickly be able to tell. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you want to ask me any questions personally, you can write in the comments down below, and if you have any feedback or any suggestions. And yeah, just hopefully you find this useful, and I hope you find a useful app that helps you improve the lives of as many clients as possible. Thank you. This is Diego from NutriAdmin signing off.